Hey there, wizards! How's it going? Are you just arriving here at the Leaky Cauldron? Then stop being a muggle. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you can stay up to date with everything that happens around here.
Don't forget that you can become a member of this channel and get access to exclusive benefits, like badges next to your name and emotes for you to use in the comments. And you can also make your comments stand out from the others using the thanks button, or send your question to caldeiraofurado. QR code on the screen, link in the description.
I don't know why I sounded so crazy when I said that.
On this channel, you've already seen videos about things that don't make sense in the books, about mistakes in the books.
You've already seen videos about the behind the scenes of the Harry Potter movies, about the details of the Harry Potter movies. You've already seen videos about made-up scenes, about deleted scenes. But you've never seen a video on this channel about mistakes in the Harry Potter movies.
If you've subscribed to the channel for over 7 years, you might have seen it.
I began making these videos 7 years ago, but eventually stopped. I made videos on Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and the Chamber of Secrets, but didn't continue.
I made that choice then, though I can't remember why. But that doesn't matter.
What's important is that, starting today, we have a new segment on caldeiraofurado. This covers mistakes in the Harry Potter movies, as well as errors from Fantastic Beasts. And when I say mistakes, I mean actual mistakes. Mistakes not in the story. Silly mistakes, production mistakes, continuity mistakes, mistakes from one scene to another, mistakes where things show up that shouldn't appear. Mistakes. Just mistakes that cinema gives us, and that are really fun to watch. Our first mistake happens when Dumbledore turns off the lights on Privet Drive using the Deluminator.
Notice that he ends up skipping the lamppost on the left side of the screen, going straight to the other 3 on the right side.
But then, all of them are turned off. When Dumbledore, Minerva, and Hagrid are standing in front, you can see that these houses are right next to each other. But in the scene where the owl delivers a letter, there, at the Dursleys' house, there's a gap between the houses. A separation that wasn't there before. When baby Harry is placed at the Dursleys' doorstep by Dumbledore, you can see the famous scar on his forehead, and notice that it's very close to the baby's eyebrow. But when the scene changes, wait, where's the scar? In the scene where Harry is waking up, you can notice that there's a cloth, a small shovel, and a brush hanging on the door. But when Harry goes out, the brush has simply disappeared. It's magic. When Harry is heading to the kitchen, his t-shirt is kind of wrinkled, kind of folded. But in the next shot, when he goes through the door, it's straight. Also, notice that when Harry heads toward the kitchen and opens the door, you can see that there's no rug on the floor. But in the next shot, when he walks through, there's a rug there. This Harry really is a wizard, huh? Doing all sorts of magic. At this moment too, when Petunia covers Dudley's eyes, notice that she puts her right hand, without the ring, over her left hand. But when she takes her hand away from Dudley's eyes, it's her left hand, with the ring, that's on top. In this scene, look at Dudley's presents. The yellow present is on the couch in a kind of tilted position. But in the next moment, without anyone having fixed it, it's perfectly straight. Magic. When Petunia kisses Dudley on the cheek, a mark appears on her son's cheek. But that mark miraculously disappears in the very next second. At that moment, you can also see the microphone wire on the actress's body. That definitely wasn't supposed to show up there. Notice this scene, while Dudley is quite upset about the number of presents he got. His hair is kind of messy, but in the next moment, it's perfectly combed. And the scenes follow one after the other. Before getting in the car, Walter warns Harry not to do anything stupid or mess around. You can notice that Harry is wearing a plaid shirt over a t-shirt, but when the scene changes angles, the plaid shirt simply disappears. The zoo scene contains some errors. When the snake is shown from behind, its head is turned to the right and it's lying on a smooth part of the rock. But when the scene changes sides, the snake's head is turned to the left and it's on a part of the rock with grass. The scenes are sequential, so it couldn't have changed places between them. When Duda falls into the snake's tank, you can see there's nothing on the branch. But in the next instant, the snake is coiled there, exactly where it should be when Duda falls in. When Harry picks up the Hogwarts letter, Notice that it's very well sealed.
But in the next scene, when he enters the kitchen, the letter is already half open. When Dudley hands Harry's letter to Walter, the teapot is on the left side of the screen, but when the shot changes, the teapot is positioned on the right side.
When Walter is holding Harry's Hogwarts letter, notice his hands in the wide shot, and then see the difference in the close-up.
In one scene, the hand has perfect nails, and in the close-up, the nails are all bitten.
Clearly, it's a stand-in because the actors aren't in the scenes 100% of the time. Sometimes, to shoot a scene from a closer angle or a more distant scene, it's the stand-ins who film. So in this case, it was clearly a stand-in. Also, in this scene where Walter is holding Harry's letter, you can see the actor who plays Dudley moving his lips, murmuring Walter's lines. That definitely shouldn't happen.
It probably happened automatically for the actor, since filming scenes repeatedly makes actors memorize each other's lines.
By the way, it's important to know the other actor's lines when they come right before yours.
So, the actor accidentally moves their mouth there. This happens more with kids, since they lack adult actors' training.
An adult actor's experience led to this accidental outcome. He mimics Walter's lines with his mouth. When Walter grabs Harry's letters to tear them up, notice that they look normal, but in his hand you can see they're pre-cut to make it easier to tear them during the scene. Notice in this scene that the back of the Dursleys' fireplace is smooth, without any details. But later, before the scene where the letters start arriving, in that famous explosion scene where letters come from everywhere, there are some little holes there in the fireplace where there weren't any before, because that's where the winds come from, the air jets that blow the letters everywhere.
That was done with a practical effect. So there's this little mistake that they just forgot to cover up digitally.
Still in this scene, when Walter is talking about it being a great Sunday because there's no mail, his arms are crossed with his right arm over his left. But in the next shot, his arms switch positions. The left arm is on top of the right, and it's not something he has time to change. It doesn't show him switching or anything. They're just cuts added in during editing later.
Because that's what happens in movies, right? Scenes are filmed a million times, and then in editing, they put all the parts together. It's wild and leads to continuity errors. Walter screws a small piece of wood onto the door, and notice that it's tilted to the right.
But when the cards break the wood, it's nailed in the opposite position, tilted to the left. Not to mention, you can see the pre-made crack in the wood for the mechanism to push and make it look like it's being broken.
And Harry really is a wizard because he can talk without moving his mouth. Check out this scene.
There's all this chaos going on, letters flying everywhere, Walter holding Harry, and he says, "Let me go."
But the actor's mouth doesn't move, since the audio was clearly recorded over the scene.
There in the shack, in the middle of nowhere, Harry is lying on the floor, and Duda is on the couch. Notice that Duda's watch changes position.
First, the Adidas logo is on the bottom, and the stripes are on the top. And when the shot changes, the logo is on top, and the stripes are on the bottom. In this aerial scene, which shows Harry drawing the birthday cake on the floor, you can see the ceiling lamp and the cord with the switch hanging down. But when Walter and Petunia are coming down the stairs and they show exactly that same lamp and that same switch, the cord is stretched along the ceiling and the switch is also up at the top. Meanwhile, Dudley uses the distraction to eat the cake Hagrid brought for Harry. You can see that the blue ribbon is completely stretched out, hanging from the table, but in the next moment, the ribbon is tangled up on top of the table.
When Hagrid casts a spell on Dudley, you can tell it's the stunt double in the scene because you can clearly see the mask he's wearing.
Robbie Coltrane's stunt double, Martin Bayfield, is 2.8 meters tall and wore padding and lift shoes to appear nearly 2.4 meters tall.
So, in those wide shots, where Hagrid needed to appear in an open angle, near other actors, near other characters, the stunt double on set wore an animatronic mask that, while realistic, is still noticeable when Hagrid and Harry are behind the leaky cauldron about to enter Diagon Alley.
Notice these barrels and these bottles. You can see that between the last two barrels, there are some bottles.
But when Harry and Hagrid enter and the camera shows from another angle, the bottles disappear. When Harry goes to Diagon Alley, he passes by the same flower cart 3 times, and he also passes by Madame Malkin twice. When Harry is passing in front of the owl shop in Diagon Alley, you can notice that the owl inside the cages in the shop window is fake. It's there, all stuffed.
Inside Gringotts Bank, Hagrid hands a letter to the goblin. Notice that the tip of the envelope is a bit crumpled and the position of the ribbon is one way.
When the scene changes and the goblin goes to take the letter, it's completely smooth, stretched out, and the position of the ribbon is different. Observe how Ollivander holds the second wand before giving it to Harry. Then note its position as he hands it over. The position changes completely in a way that's impossible to do in that sequence.
After Harry tries the first wand, he sets it in front of the book on the counter.
And the wand has a thin handle and 5 round embossed marks.
Notice that he places these marks perfectly aligned with the center of the book.
But when Harry receives the second wand, the first one, placed in front of the book, is completely different with only 2 embossed marks and a thicker handle. Also, the position isn't the same as when Harry left the first one.
At Ollivander's, when the wand maker is coming down the stairs, Harry is standing in the middle of the counter. But when the shot changes, Harry is more to the side of the table, even though he didn't move between shots.
And speaking of distance, while Hagrid and Harry are at the leaky cauldron, Hedwig's cage is in one position. It's really close to Hagrid, but when the angle changes, the cage is much farther away.
At platform 9 3/4, Mrs. Weasley signals for Percy to go through the wall first. When she's facing forward, the bag is in her left hand, but when the scene changes and she's shown from behind, the bag has switched hands. Magic. In the Hogwarts Express compartment with Ron, as Harry talks and eats sweets, the tear in his shirt moves positions several times.
Sometimes it seems like it doesn't exist, and the size varies too.
On the Hogwarts Express, Ron's hair is initially parted in the middle, but then the position of his hair changes, and the part shifts more to the side.
When Hermione appears in the compartment on the Hogwarts Express, notice that her tie is a bit crooked, but when she goes to sit down right after, her tie is perfectly straight.
And the crest is already sticking out a bit more than it was before.
After being sorted into Gryffindor, Harry goes to sit at the table. He sits on the right side, next to Ron Weasley, but when the scene changes, he's sitting next to Hermione on the left side of the table.
When the students receive the first Owl Post of the year, Ron gets a letter from his family and an issue of the Daily Prophet.
Notice that when he gets the newspaper, he takes it with his right hand and the letter with his left hand. But when the angle changes, the newspaper is in his left hand and the letter in his right.
In Professor Sneepoo's first class, Harry is unfairly humiliated. Notice that while Professor Sneepoo is talking, Harry is taking notes on what he's saying.
And then, the handwriting is really neat, carefully written. The notes are small, but when the scene changes, there's a huge note with big, messy handwriting, completely different from before.
In the first potions class, Professor Sneepoo is first seen standing by a candle and an hourglass. But when the angle changes, the candle and hourglass switch sides, yet Professor Sneepoo remains in the same spot.
Right at the beginning of the first flying lesson, while the teacher is arriving, you can notice that the students are standing behind the brooms.
But when the shot changes and the camera moves closer to the teacher's feet, passing between the students, they are already standing next to the brooms. When Hermione is trying to make the broom fly into her hand during the flying lesson, notice that her hair has some very specific marks. But then, the marks vanish. Still in this flying lesson scene, you can see that Ron manages to summon his broom without any problems. But in the next take, the famous scene happens where the broom hits him on the forehead. You can also notice that in this scene it was the actor's stunt doubles. When it's a wide shot, this mainly happened with the children because of labor laws. They couldn't spend many hours on set. They couldn't stay as long as the adults. They also had to study while working. So, in some scenes, they use stand-ins, those distant wide shots, which often go unnoticed or not. Besides that, in those flying lesson scenes, the shadows change position. First, they're one way, then they simply disappear. When Neville is flying on the broom, out of control, it shows the statue where he's going to get stuck from the back.
It's on a round tower, but when the angle changes and he gets stuck, when they show it from the front, the statue is on a different tower, completely straight.
When Draco grabs Neville's Rememberall, notice how he's holding the broom. The handle is facing up. In the next shot, the broom has the bristles facing up, but in the following shot, it's exactly as it was before.
When Draco grabs Neville's Remembrall, after Neville has his accident with the broom, Draco takes off, and the direction the students are looking is completely different from the direction he's actually flying. For example, Hermione is looking away, even though Draco was right in front of her.
When Harry dives to catch Neville's Remembrall in front of Minerva's window, notice that before the scene is shown from inside the professor's classroom, there was a bar in the middle of the window, but when we see it from inside, it simply disappears in the middle. The window now has a different shape. After the trio finds Fluffy, they return to the common room and pass a door that closes on its own.
Or almost by itself, since you can see a crew member pushing the door, and his little feet right there. Look, hi.
When Oliver Wood starts to teach Harry Quidditch rules, he places the bat by his leg, pointing forward, but in the next scene, it's behind him. During Harry's Quidditch practice with Wood, as he explains the rules and shows the game balls, you can notice the mechanism that makes the chest move there, which is supposed to be the bludgers, right? But you can see the mechanism that makes this chest move like that.
In the Great Hall, where the candles float magically with the help of strings, you can see some of those strings holding the candles.
It wasn't meant to show, but it did. The spell is Fishing Line Leviosa. In the scene where Professor Quirrell runs into the Great Hall to announce that the troll is in the dungeons, he faints. Pay attention to the position of his legs. When he faints, his legs are in one position and then in another. In the scene where Harry and Ron are running to the bathroom to warn Hermione about the troll, you can see a production light reflector there, which wasn't supposed to show. This mistake is only noticeable on the old digital versatile disc. On Blu-ray, all such errors were fixed, either by making the shot tighter or by removing the object. When Hermione is in the bathroom and comes out of the stall and runs into the troll, you can notice that there's a divider that goes all the way to the floor in the stall she enters. But when the troll attacks, hits, and breaks the stalls, she goes through a gap, an opening underneath. But where did this opening come from? The troll only broke the top. The bottom stayed closed, at least in the stall divider she uses. Besides, even before the troll broke the stalls, you can see that they already have a break mark to make it easier to knock everything down there.
Not to mention that in this scene, there's also another pretty blatant mistake.
When the troll hits the sink, you can count, coming from the wall outward. It's the second sink that's broken, but in the next scene, when Hermione gets up, it's the fourth sink that's broken. When Harry is crawling to escape from the troll, you can notice the knee pads the actor is wearing so he doesn't hurt his knees in the scene. Notice this moment when the troll is disarmed. We hear the sound of the club hitting the troll's head, but we don't hear the sound of it falling to the ground. There's simply nothing. Total silence. Also, notice the difference between the shots with this towel. First, it's messy. Then, it's completely neat. I wish I could do that magic at home.
During the Quidditch game, Madame Hooch's uniform changes position. In other words, it's not the uniform itself that moves, but the elements of the uniform.
The crest is on one side, but when they mirrored the scene, they forgot it would switch sides.
While the Quidditch game is happening, you can notice the broom seats. Those seats are there so the actors can be comfortable, or as comfortable as they can be while filming the scenes, right?
But in the story, the broom doesn't have a seat. We can let this one slide because we know the brooms have an invisible seat to cushion the riders and make them comfortable. But that's not the case here. This one is actually a mistake.
Besides the seats, on Harry's broom, you can also notice the ropes that tie the players' feet. Like, for example, in this scene with Marcus Flint, you can very clearly see the cables showing, which weren't supposed to be visible. When Harry is hanging from the broom, almost being knocked off, you can see the structures that keep him attached to the broom. These structures come out of the broomstick and are attached to the actor's arm. When Harry's broom is jinxed, Hermione uses binoculars to see better. In the reflection, you can see Harry, right?
Struggling on the broom, and then she looks at Snape using the same binoculars, but the reflection doesn't change.
It keeps showing Harry nearly falling off his broom when it should show Snape since she was watching him. Watch the creases in Hermione's scarf when the trio asks Hagrid about Snape possibly jinxing Harry's broom.
First, they're one way, and then they're completely different. That's because obviously these are different takes.
Hagrid is carrying a big Christmas tree and notice that it's snowing. But at first, there's no snow on his head. Some snowflakes even start to fall on his head when he starts walking in the snow.
But in the next shot, his head is already covered in snow.
In this scene where Harry is in the restricted section, researching about Nicolas Flamel, notice where he puts the lamp. Did you see that it's a bit far from the cloak?
But when he gets startled because Filch enters the place, he quickly pulls the cloak and knocks over the lamp. It was in a completely different spot than where he left it, on the cloak.
In this very beautiful snowy scene, Harry is there holding Hedwig.
You can see the string tied to the owl's leg to keep her from flying away during the scene. Here, where Harry and Ron come running into the Mirror of Erised room, Harry wants to show Ron, desperately. You can notice that they throw the invisibility cloak on the floor.
If you look closely, you'll see the green part of the fabric, where they use the chroma key effect to make it invisible.
That didn't turn invisible, just so you know, production. While serving detention in the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid, the trio witnesses his brief talk with Filch, Hogwarts caretaker.
Notice the position where he puts the lantern. Now, look at that position again. When the scene changes, the way he holds the lantern changes completely.
When the trio is going to talk to Hagrid after the final exams, notice the students who walk behind him in this scene and then, at this moment.
It's the same trio and people who walked by. They weren't meant to be the same extras, but they were. Likely to save money.
After the final exams, when Harry, Ron, and Hermione go to talk to Hagrid, notice that Hermione is holding a bag, and it just disappears afterwards. Ron's shirt was partly untucked, but after the camera zooms in on Harry, it appears more tucked in.
In this scene, Emma Watson repeats the mistake made by Dudley's actor.
At the beginning of the movie, she repeats Daniel Radcliffe's lines, and Emma Watson really did that. She memorized not only her lines, but also Daniel's and Rupert's.
So at certain moments, you can see her moving her mouth, saying lines that weren't hers. In this scene, the trio tells Minerva they know about the Philosopher's Stone and that she's in danger.
Notice that the scene shows, on top of the table, a candle behind the hourglass and a book. But then, when the scene shows Minerva McGonagall from the front, the candle is next to the hourglass.
Another previously unseen book appears. In Fluffy's chamber, a massive drool lands on Ron's shoulder, staining his clothes and making everything slimy.
But then, in the next moment, when he's in the devil's snare, he just fell there and suddenly, his clothes are dry. No drool, no stains. Right after they escape the devil's snare, you can see an arm from someone on the crew doing something to Rupert Grint, either pushing him to keep going in the scene, or maybe adjusting his microphone. But you can see that arm there. In the scene where Harry goes to grab the broom to catch the flying keys, you can also see the wire holding the broom.
Once again, the production team used the fishing line Leviosa spell.
When Harry throws the winged key for Hermione to catch, you can see an electric wire from the production next to the pillar. You can also see a steel cable attached to the actress playing Hermione, coming out of her sweater. When Ron falls off the horse after sacrificing himself, padding is visible under his clothes. You can also tell it's the stunt double, not Rupert Grint, in the scene.
After Ron faints in Wizard's chess, his bent knee makes 1 foot higher than the other.
But when Harry and Hermione run to him, his legs are straight and his feet together. Not to mention that during the chess match, when the queen strikes the rook for the first time,
she destroys the piece, but in the next scene, when she strikes again, the piece appears to have regenerated, destroyed again, since the first strike had already ruined the piece. Then it appears whole again when the queen strikes it a second time. When Quirrell takes off the turban and reveals Voldemort on the back of his head, he's completely bald. But at several moments during the movie, we see Professor Quirrell's hair showing after Harry falls, when Voldemort's soul, the piece of Voldemort, passes through him and knocks the boy down. He's holding the Philosopher's Stone, and his hand is just hanging on the stairs. You can see it, right? You really notice his hand hanging. But in the next scene, Harry is unconscious and his hand is normal on the floor, not hanging anymore. In the hospital wing, when Harry is talking to Dumbledore, you can notice that his injuries are almost healed. But then, in the following scenes, when he's at the end-of-year party, and even when he's getting on the Hogwarts Express to leave, you can see that the wounds are less healed. It looks like they actually did the opposite. Instead of healing more, they unhealed them. And still talking about Harry's wounds, notice that they also changed from one shot to another. at the moment when he's saying goodbye to Hagrid. Before he gets on the train, the wounds on the side of his eye are slightly different.
When Dumbledore is giving the final speech at the ceremony, you can see a piece of the camera between the tables in the Great Hall.
Hey, but Chamber of Secrets is the next movie, not this one. This is Philosopher's Stone. That was a good one, right? Chamber of Secrets, get it? It was supposed to be a secret, not show the secret camera. No? Sorry. When Hagrid gives Harry the photo album, notice his thumb is on its back as he takes it from his pocket.
But when he gives it to Harry, his thumb is already on the album's front. That changed fast.
Huh? The thing just flipped. He'd have to take it, turn it around, and put it back. You get it? It's a real mistake.
Finally, watch the last scene when Hagrid says goodbye and the camera pulls back. Did you notice anything off?
Well, Hagrid is shorter than the Hogwarts Express, when in fact he should be much taller since he's a half giant. So that's it, my wizards.
I hope you guys enjoyed this return of the series. I took the first video and gave it a makeover, right? Especially that first one. My God, the video, audio, image quality, and even how I recorded and spoke were all just bad.
We were just starting out, right? So you have to be gentle with Kako from the past. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
While redoing the video, I noticed more mistakes, including some common ones found online.
After all, the movie is over 20 years old, so these mistakes aren't really a secret to anyone anymore. Still, I wanted to share my own Harry Potter movie mistakes with the Leaky Cauldron.
I'll see you in the next episode here at the Leaky Cauldron, and until then, mischief managed.